Today we're going to talk about APA, and just so you know, this will be recorded and uploaded to YouTube, so you feel free to say whatever you'd like, but just know that it'll be uploaded to YouTube for the whole world to see. The purpose of today's discussion is not only to talk about certain aspects of APA for you as sixth semester students of the BA, but also to record it and make it available to other students in the BA, all the way from Prope to 8th semester. And even in Prope, I have a writing class, and we're going to be talking about a little bit about APA. So they are getting exposure to APA from the beginning, from the second semester. Now, the thing to think about before we talk about some of the specifics to APA is to look at your trajectory, your experiences taking all of the courses in the Applied Linguistics strand. Okay, so most of you, I guess all of you have taken linguistics, of course in linguistics. What else have you taken in the linguistics strand? Sociolinguistics, psycholinguistics, and we're taking discourse analysis this semester, and you will be taking applied linguistics next semester. Okay. Now, as all of you know, you will be required the 8th semester to write a thesis for graduating from the BA. So a lot of the things that we're talking about now will not only apply maybe to this class or another class where you have to write an essay, but also 7th semester when you have an academic writing course, which you'll be required to write a 2,500 word literature review, and your thesis, which is about 5,000 to 6,000 word essay, which will include an investigation. So a lot of the concepts we have here, hopefully you will take some notes. We will have, or you will have this video available to you later if you want to go back and view it to get some details. I'd also like to share with you another website where I talk very specifically about APA, and that's in my website, benjaminstewart.co. If you go to the main page and scroll down, there's a link that's called APA Survival Kit. So if you click on that link, it's a page dedicated to APA. So I would also recommend that you go to my webpage, benjaminstewart.co, scroll down and click on APA Survival Kit, and you'll find some additional information about specifics to APA. Okay? All right. I'm going to go through a few items with APA today. Hopefully you have some questions, but I'll try to go through this to allow some time at the end so you can ask questions if you have specific questions about any issues related to APA. All right? So, the first thing that we might want to start off with, what is APA, the American Psychological Association? This is the format that was agreed upon here at the university, so all your classes you'll be asked to adhere to APA. Now this is the book for APA, and in this hour or so discussion we're not going to be able to obviously talk about all of it. There's a lot of detail to APA, but what we are going to talk about is some of the specific issues that I've seen the last few years in teaching students in thesis, seminar class, and also academic writing class, as well as other classes that require any type of writing assignments. Now, we mentioned a few courses that you were taking in applied linguistics, but a lot of these concepts, anytime you write an essay in any of your classes, a lot of the concepts that we talk about today you might want to use and incorporate into your writing. Okay. What percentage of the essay should be cited and what should be an original thought? The question is, when do you cite and when do you not cite? Yes?
Can we use someone else's ideas?
Okay. So, when you are writing, when you are not writing an original thought, you need a citation. Okay, so when you are not writing an original thought, that's your own idea, you need a citation. You do not need a citation when it's common knowledge. So if you say, the world is round, okay, you don't necessarily need a citation for that because that's common knowledge. Everyone knows it. But when you're writing, ask yourself, is this common knowledge first? If it's common knowledge, you do not need a citation. And if it's your own original thought, you do not need a citation. Now, I bring that up because one of the key things to always remember is to ask yourself what percentage of what I'm writing should be an original thought and what percentage should not. Because sometimes the tendency is to oversight and have the entire essay citation, 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 citation. So that's one thing that you want to work very closely with your instructor. My general philosophy, suggestion would be that most of what you write should be an original thought, not a citation. The citations are there to support your original thought. Does that make sense? Yeah. So everything should come from you first as an original thought, but then back it up with evidence, right? With details that come from an outside source. Okay? So, one easy way to think about when you're thinking about what percentage should be an original thought and what should not is to follow what I refer to as the meal plan. Now, the meal plan is an easy acronym that I use when I develop paragraphs. This is paragraph development, and this is related to APA, I promise. The meal plan stands for M stands for the main idea or the topic sentence. E stands for evidence or details. A stands for analyze. You might compare and contrast. You might compare and contrast to some other detail in your essay. And link. At the end of every paragraph, you want to link usually to the next paragraph. Okay? I'm not going to go into detail with all of this, but the main point with the paragraph is usually the citations are there to support the evidence, the details, usually. Okay, so a general rule when you're trying to write and you're coming up with your original ideas and what are not original ideas is to remember that the evidence or the details, that's usually where you're citing. So you might say, for example, and then Chomsky states that, and then that would be a citation, that would be a detail that supports the main idea. So a common issue that I've come across is that we have a tendency to start a paragraph with a citation. And I'm not going to say that that's always wrong, but what usually happens, that citation is usually an evidence, it's not a main idea. And so then what's happening? We're missing the topic sentence. Okay. So just something to think about. What percentage should be an original idea and what percentage should not? And then where are you going to put those citations? And typically it's after the topic sentence. The topic sentence being your original idea that's coming from you. And then you provide details or evidence that support that. Okay? Now, one other thing before we talk about how to cite and how to reference, we have two ways that we can cite. Now I'm going to use two words today here. I'm going to use one's going to be a cite or citation, and one's going to be reference. Okay, so a cite as a verb or citation as the noun is the actual citation in the text itself where you put the author's name and the year. The reference is at the end of your essay you're going to have what's called a reference list. Okay, so we'll use this term reference to refer to that at the end of your essay where you have information about the sources. Citation is the information that's included within the text where you are referencing. Now we have two types of citations, okay? So citations, we can say we have direct quotes, and we can also what? Paraphrase. So the question is, do we need a citation when we paraphrase? When we put our own words into our own words, someone else's idea, do we need a citation?
Yes.
Do we need a citation when we take someone else's ideas and we put our own words to express that idea? Do we need a citation?
Yes.
Yes. Okay? The direct quote, do we need a citation when we quote someone's words word for word? Yes. So sometimes we forget that even when we paraphrase, we also need a citation. Okay, so anytime that it's not your original thought, or it's a common knowledge, you need a citation. Anytime it's someone else's thoughts, whether it's in your own words or it's word for word. Okay, so we have two types of citations: direct quote and paraphrase. Now, let's look at a citation. Now, we usually use parentheses, right? In fact, we always use parentheses when we include a citation. So let's say that we have a direct quote here, and we say, blah, blah, blah. Okay? So someone really intelligent said blah, blah, blah. Okay? And we want to use that wonderful idea to support a main idea in our paragraph. So we're going to use this citation, this direct quote, in quotation marks. Okay? And we're going to end the sentence with a what? We're going to end the sentence after we direct quote with a citation. Okay, so this is a citation. So let's say, alright, so this is one way that we can cite an author. So we have a direct quote in quotation marks, and then in parentheses we have the author's, what is this? The author's last name, right? Last name only. It's not last name, first initial. It's not first and last name. It's only the last name. Comma, space, and the year. Close the parentheses and end your sentence with a period. So notice, what are some common mistakes? Sometimes we put the period here at the end. We try to end the sentence here. But no, there's no period until you end the sentence after the citation. Okay? Sometimes instead of quotation marks, I see italics. Okay, so it's normal text, but it's in direct quotes. And this is how we reference the citation. Now, when it's a direct quote, we also need to include the page number or the page numbers. So let's say it's on page 2, then we include page number and we abbreviate P period and then the number. If it's on several pages, we do PP and we write 2 to 3. Let's see. Messy there. Alright, so when it's on several pages, PP period is in pages, and then 2 to 3 parentheses period. Okay? So we have the page number when it is a direct quote. Now this is when it's a book reference or a journal reference. Okay? Book, a journal. When it's a website, we don't have page numbers, right? Usually. Right? So when it's a website, instead of page numbers, we abbreviate paragraph, P-A-R-A, period, and we list or we put the number or numbers of paragraphs that you can find a direct quote. The point is you need to be able to find the direct quote. When it's a website, we don't have page numbers. So instead we number the paragraphs. So you just count. Okay, which number of paragraphs? Third paragraph. That's where you can find the direct quote. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So this is a website. Paragraph is abbreviated P-A-R-A. And when it's a book or journal, then we can use the page numbers. Questions? All right.
Instead of the dot, can we use a dash for the number of pages? For instance, we have page number 2 to 3 to 3. we can use the dash instead of the dash.
This is a dash, right? Or a
Okay.
hyphen. Yeah,
I
sorry.
thought it was a...
No, this is a Guillaume made it, right? This is a dash, right? So you just put the range from page 2 to page 3. All right, now we have another way. Let's say the same author says something very intelligent, right? But I'm going to put it in my own words. So I can say blah, blah, blah. Now, when I paraphrase, do I use direct quotes? Do I use quotation marks? No, because it's in my own words. But it's still not my original thought. So I still need what?
Citation.
A citation. I still need to include a citation because it's still not my original thought. So in parentheses, the reference is, the citation is the same. The citation is exactly the same, regardless if it's a direct quote or paraphrase. So we have Evan. Okay, so we still have the author's last name, the year, and the page number. Okay. Now, we also have occasions, especially when it's a website, when we don't have a year. When it's a book and a journal, we can always find the year. But sometimes the websites, we can't find the year. The first thing you need to do when you're looking for the year for a website is to go to the main page, go to the main page. Sometimes when you find an article, it's like the address is like a mile long, and it's a subpage of a subpage of a subpage, and maybe on that page it doesn't have the year. Go to the main page. So go up to your URL and take out everything and go back to the home page, and a lot of times you can find the date there. If you can find the date there, use that date. If from the main page you're still unable to find the date, then instead of the date, we're going to abbreviate and write, what do you think? What abbreviation? ND. No date, right? Comma. Let's say paragraph 3. Okay? So this would be an example of a website where you went to the home page, you still were not able to find the dates, and you said, okay, there's no date, and you're going to abbreviate lowercase n, lowercase d with periods, and then paragraph 3, if it's a direct quote. If it's a paraphrase, then you end it after the ND. Yes? Yeah, okay. So that's when you can't find a web page with a date. Now, when we look at the citations, there are different ways still that we can cite. So one way we can say Evan, let's see, according to Evan, what do we need after the last name, the author's last name?
The year.
The year. So in this case, we're going to say 2013, comma, because this is kind of a sentence connector. So according to Evan, the year, comma, blah, blah, period. Okay, so this is a very common way to cite. So we can say, according to Evan, and then the year. This is our citation. Notice that what do you notice here? Is this the author's first name or last name? Last name. Do we need the author's first name? No, only the last name. So according to Evan, the year, comma, then we write. This is a paraphrase because it doesn't have quotation marks. These are my own words, but using the idea of Evan. If it were a direct quote, how would it change? So let's assume that blah, blah, blah now is a direct quote. I'm using word for word what Evan said. What do I need? What's missing? If it is a book or journal, if it's a web page, Paragraph, which is abbreviated PARA or PARA. Okay. Now, where do I put
At the end.
the page number?
At the end of the quote.
The most common way of doing it is after the quotation marks. Sometimes you see page numbers up here, but I would prefer this way, putting the page numbers at the end. So notice that the year is up next to the author, August, and within the same sentence, the page number's at the end. Notice that the period is after the citation and not after the direct quote. A common issue, common problem. A lot of times we want to put the period right here because that's the end of what we say, but it's not the end of the sentence because, why? The citation is always inside the sentence. Now this is a very important point that I need to stress. When you cite, make sure that you always include a citation within the sentence that you're referencing. Here's a common problem that happens. So let's say we have the sentence here. Let's say we have a sentence here. We have a sentence here. Okay? Now, we have this quote here, and let's say that Evan, we want to quote another idea from Evan in the second sentence. So we say blah, 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 and we don't include a citation. Okay? So this second sentence is an idea coming from Evan, but I did not include a citation because I thought, well, okay, this citation's here, so I'm good. Right? Be careful. Right? My recommendation would be to always include a citation in the sentence if it's not your original idea or if it's not common knowledge. Why? Because if you forget, if you assume, you say, well, I thought, this is not my idea, this is someone else's, but you don't include the citation, you run the risk of committing what? Plagiarism. Plagiarism. A lot of times I'll see a complete paragraph and someone will cite at the very end, thinking, okay, this citation is for like the whole paragraph. But don't do that. Okay? Remember, you have every sentence you should evaluate. Is it your idea, your original idea, or is it coming from outside source, from an outside source? So be very careful to make sure that citations are always within the sentence. Now, there are times where you can say here, for example, Evan goes on to say in the second sentence. So I have the citation here, and you actually mention the author's name. Then it's okay not to include the citation. But my recommendation is just to make sure you don't have problems is to always include the citation within each sentence when it is not your original idea, just to be on the safe side, not to make a mistake and say, oops, I committed plagiarism and then get a 0 on your work that you've worked a long time on. Okay? So be very careful with citations. The whole purpose of understanding APA and citations and references is to avoid plagiarism. Okay. Questions so far? So far, so good? Let's look at references. So these are two ways of citations, but we also have references. Now, the very end of your essay, you should create a page break. That means a separate page at the very end, and you should have a heading that's called references. I see, references. Centered to the page and in bold text. Now, under references, this is where we're going to include our references. So let's say we have this citation that we used in our work, and we say Evan, and what type of reference do you want to do first? What type of reference do you think this is? A book. All right, so this is a book reference. This is how you do a book reference. So Evan is the first name or last name? Last name. What's Evan's first name? John. So John Evan. So John, his first initial only, all right, is what we include, not the entire name John, but his first initial with a period. Space, ¿qué sigue? The year, in this case, 2013. Parentheses, what's next? What punctuation do we use after the year?
Period.
Period. Period. Okay, and space?
Name of the book.
The name of the book. Alright, so title of book. Okay, so this is a book reference, the title of the book. Then what? What do we end?
Period.
Period. What's after the title of the book? The place. Now let's assume that it was in New York. Okay. The place of what? The publisher. All right. So let's say that it was in New York. Now this was a change in the 6th edition. This is the 6th edition of the APA. And in the 5th edition, they made some changes between the two editions. One of the changes was now we have to include both the state and the city and the state. So in this case, New York City, comma, New York. Now the state, when it's in the U.S., can be abbreviated. Okay, so New York spelled out because that's the city. The state is abbreviated, NY. And then what punctuation? Colon. Okay, the colon. And then what's next? And we end with a. And we end with what type of punctuation? Period. All right, now, one last thing. The title of the book is in italics. Okay, so we have the author's last name, comma, space. First initial, period, space. Parentheses in the year, and the parentheses with the period space. Title of the book, in italics. Period, space. The city, comma, and the state, colon, space. Pearson, period.
The title of the book is italics?
Yes. Yeah, Pearson is just an example. Like Pearson or Macmillan, or what's the publisher? The name of the publisher?
We don't write the page.
Okay, so the good question. The question is, do we need to include the page numbers and the reference?
No. Yeah.
Why?
You already did it.
already mentioned
If it's a direct quote, we already have the page numbers here, so we can find it. If it's a paraphrase, we don't need a page number reference. So we don't need to include it either in the citation or in the reference. Good question. Any other questions?
a website. Like the reference for a website.
Okay, so this is an example of a book. Now, let's assume, let's do a journal. Now, I'm showing you today examples of a book and a journal and a website. And why those three? Well, those are the three that you'll be asked to use or include in your thesis as well as your literature review and academic writing next semester. There are many, many different other types of sources, and each one is a little bit different. Okay, but for the sake of time, we'll talk about these three because they're the most common and ones that you'll be asked to use here going forward. So, this is a book. Now let's do a journal. So we still begin with what? The author's last name, comma, the author's first name, first initial only, not the first name, and then the year, and then what? What's after the year? Title of the journal. Journal or the article? The article. The article. Now, notice here, both in the book reference and in the journal reference, which words are capitalized? Which words are capitalized in the title of the book? Which words are capitalized in the title of the article? In this, what I wrote here, which word is capitalized?
The first one?
The first one. The first one only. Word? Okay. Well, the first word, the first letter of the first word. Alright, so when you capitalize, when you write the title of the book or title of the article, only the first word is capitalized, meaning the first letter of the first word. Just as I've done here.
Even if the book has everything in capital.
Doesn't matter, yeah. Yes. Even if the book, because here's the thing, capitalization. Alright, we have headings. Alright, when you write an essay, you might use headings. In headings, we capitalize the main words. Not just the first word, but the main words of the heading. But it's different in references. Right? So in references, it's only the first word is capitalized. It's different than headings. Okay? Alright. So, the title of the article, period. And what's next? Title of the journal. Title of the journal. And journals typically have what? How do we reference journals? So we have the title of the journal, and then we have the volume number. So the first number is the volume. Do I abbreviate VOL for volume? No. Just the number. So the name of the journal, the volume number, and then if there's an issue number, we include the issue number in parentheses. Some journals don't have issue numbers, so if it doesn't have it, leave it out. But all journals have volume numbers. Volume 1, Volume 2, Volume 3. Okay? So the title of the journal, and then we have the volume number and an issue number, and it's all together. It's all together. There's no space between the volume and the issue number. This is what makes APA difficult. Yes? There's a lot of details. It's not difficult, but there's a lot of details with regard to the spacing and punctuation. So we have the title of the journal, we have the volume, and then we have the issue number, and then what? A comma. And I think there's a comma after the title of the journal also. This is the volume number and the issue number. How do I spell it? What is that? Volume. Volume. But you don't write volume in the reference. Volume.
What is issue number?
Issue number is just another issue. That's another reference number. So sometimes they'll have one volume number, but several issues within one volume. Sometimes. So what's after the issue number? Year. Well, we have the year here, right? Right. And what do we have after here?
What if we have letters instead of numbers?
I have never seen a volume number that wasn't a number. If it's a letter, then I guess put the letter. But I've always seen it as numbers. And then we have the page numbers. Now, the page numbers are the page numbers of the entire article, not the reference only. Okay, so it's the entire article. If it's 15 pages, you write the page numbers, the range. PP period 203 to 210. That's not the reference, but that's the entire article. Okay, if they want to find the specific page number of the reference, they can still find it here if it's a direct quote. That's the direct. This is the page number of the direct quote, but this is the page number of the entire article. Yes? Yes.
does the title of the journal reference have to be in italics?
Okay, good question. What do we italicize in the journal? In the book, we italicize what? The title of the book. In the journal, what is italicized?
Bold title.
In a journal, you italicize the name of the journal, the title of the journal, or the name of the journal, and the volume number only, not the issue number. Okay? So we italicize the title or the name of the journal and the volume number, not the title of the article. The article is normal text. Speaking of text, speaking of fonts, which font should we use across the board for all essays for APA? Times New Roman, what size? 12. Right? No Arial, no whatever other type of font. Just Times New Roman, font size 12. That's the same for headings. That's the same for references, same for citations. Font size 12.
What kind of
Times New Roman. Times New Roman, font size 12. And for titles. The only difference between the headings is the headings are in bold. But it's still Times New Roman, font size 12. But it's bold. That's the only text that's in bold.
Which one is in bold?
Headings. Headings. And we haven't talked yet about headings, and hopefully we'll have time to talk about headings. But headings are in the actual text.
Not in reference.
Not in references. No bold in references. No bold in your text except for the headings.
And like references isn't like a heading?
Yes, references. References, which is at the very end of your essay, you have a page break, a separate page, and this is the heading.
Oh yeah.
So references, a capital R, right? It's lowercase, the rest of it, and then it's in bold. Yes, sorry? It's centered. So talking about headings, I'll talk about headings here when I finish the third example here for references, and we'll talk about headings. Okay? All right, third is website. Now, website. I'm going to use a ditto so we can kind of go a little bit faster. Everything's the same. Evan, last name, first initial, year. Now, the title of the page, and then I'm also going to put the article. If it's an article or the name of the page, the name of the title of the page that you're accessing. Yes? Gabby? Okay. No, it's kind of. I get the same reaction when I look at APA. I have to laugh and smile a lot because there's a lot of people. All right. So we have the title of the page, and then we have a period. Now, this is a web page, so we have to use a different reference here. We say retrieved from. Sorry. Retrieved from, and then HTTP. Then the link. So, a web page. This was another change in the 6th edition from the 5th. When we have retrieved, this is a capital R, retrieved from, we don't have to include the date that we retrieved it from the page. It's optional. Okay, if you think that the page won't be up very long, you can include the year, but it's optional. But you do need to include, all you can say is retrieved from, then the URL. Okay, that's it. So it's the author's last name, first initial, year, the title of the page, period, and then retrieved from. That is the web page reference. Yeah. The title of the page or article, whatever. I'm saying page, but it could be the actual article. Then period, retrieved. Okay, got it. Alrighty. Any other questions? Yes.
In the website, what if we can't find any else?
Okay. My suggestion would be if you can't find the article, don't use the reference. Because in a web page or a website, we have to be more critical. We have to say, okay, is this a good source or not? Now, if it's a book or an article, we can be a little bit more assured that it's viable, it's a good source. But a web page, we can't just use any web page. All right, for example, no dictionaries, no encyclopedias, no Wikipedia, right? Those are off limits completely. Now, if you can't find an author, ask yourself, well, is this a really good reference? You want to find really good authors? Ask yourself the same if you can't find the date. Is this a current source? Right? So my suggestion would be you definitely need to find something with a web page reference with an author. That would be my suggestion.
In this case, when are we going to utilize?
Sorry?
In this case, when are we going to utilize letters?
Okay. So what do we italicize in the web page? Yes. The title of the page or the article is italicized. So this is italicized. We italicize the name of the journal when it's a journal, and we italicize the book when it's a book. Okay? Questions? So these are the most... Here?
No webpage.
Okay. Okay, the web page, I'm putting ditto signs here. This means repeat. So we need to have the year here for the web page. Now, if you can't find the date to the website, go to the main website. Really try to find the date. But if you can't find the date, it's more likely not to find the date on the web page. Okay, so if you can't find the date, but the author is good, right? You know the author is recommended. He or she has some history and background in this subject that you're investigating. Then you can put ND. You could put ND, just like your citation. Okay, so anytime you can't find the date, you put ND just like you do in the citation if you don't have the date. Okay, any other questions so far? What are we doing with that? Yes.
What happens if we fail in some aspect?
All right, well, yeah, you need to work very closely with each of your teachers who's going to be assessing it, right? And ask, the main thing is that the reader can find where you got the source. That's why we have citations and references, because if I want to read more about Evan saying blah, 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 I want to know where to go, right? So your reference list has to be alphabetized according to author's last name. Right? You have to make it easy for the reader to say, okay, this is the book, this is where I can find this information. That's the whole point. So, personally what I do is I would mark off more if it's harder for me to find that reference, so if you leave off a period, right? I mean, that's not such a big deal. If you leave out the title of the book, well, that's a bigger deal because it's harder to find. So that's how I personally look at it. But each teacher, you need to really work closely with each teacher to make sure how he or she will assess the APA, right? Yes, Dave?
What about if we don't write the correct punctuation? Are we committing plagiarism?
I don't consider it plagiarism if you mess up some of the formatting here in the references. What's more serious is if you leave out the citation here. But again, like if you have it here and you don't have it here, well, okay, that's something. But the idea is that you have it in both places, and it's not complicated, but there's certain details. And the easiest thing to do is to find examples, print them out, and have them next to you. And when it's time to reference or cite, just look at the example and follow the example to the space, the punctuation. I mean, every little detail. That's at first what can be a little bit more difficult, because it does matter, all the spacing, the punctuation, but the easiest thing is just to look at an example and try to follow the exact example. And I think Purdue University, OWL, OWL Online, I think, OWL Online from Purdue University is a great website that has tons of examples that you can print out and have available. Right? And that's what I do. And if I forget how to reference, I just look at an example and copy it. Just exactly the way they do it. Okay? Now, real quickly here, we're almost out of time, but we could get, I think we can get to headings. Now, headings is a little bit different. I'm thinking now for your thesis seminar class, you're probably not going to use more than 3 level headings. APA has 5 different types of headings, but 3, I'm going to discuss today 3 types of headings, and I'm going to call them level 1, level 2, level 3. Level 1 heading is very much like, in fact, it's identical to the reference heading as an example. So a level 1 heading is centered to the page. So I'm going to use this as an example. So imagine your sheet of paper here. Alright, so references is centered in bold, and the main words are capitalized. The main words. Now there's only one word here, but if you have a heading with 6 to 10 words, you're going to capitalize the main words. But it's centered in bold, main words are capitalized. That's a level 1. A level 2 heading is left justified. A level 2 heading is left justified, it's in bold, the main words are capitalized. It's on its own line, right? So there's nothing after. So let's say you have a paragraph here. Okay? This would be a level 2 heading, left justified, in bold, main words are capitalized. Level 1 heading, main words are capitalized, it's in bold, and it's centered to the page. Estamos?
The second one?
The second one is left justified. If you imagine this as a piece of paper, left justified, in bold, and main words are capitalized. So these two have in common, they're in bold and main words are capitalized. The only difference is this is centered and this is left justified, and they're both on a separate line, obviously. Right? So you would have the heading here, then you would do a hard return and start typing. Same with level 2. Okay, third heading, and this is probably you'll probably never need more than 3 headings for the BA. Probably no more than 3 headings. Level 3 heading is indented. So level 3 heading, period. So level 3 heading is indented. That means it's part of the paragraph. So it's indented, it's in bold, and only the first word is capitalized. And you end with a period. So the level 3 heading, in bold, first word is capitalized only, and you end with a period, and it's part of the paragraph, just as I'm trying to do here. And then you end with a period, and then start your paragraph. This is a level 3 heading. So level 1, level 2, and a level 3 heading. You will not need more than 3 level headings for anything that you do in the BA. And you may just use 2 headings. You may only use 1 heading, depending on the essay. For a thesis seminar, you'll probably use 3 headings, probably. For sure 2, probably 3. Okay, headings. Capitalization, different than how we capitalize when we're doing references, which is only the first word if we compare it to level 1, level 2. Okay, now, question about indentation. When you work in Microsoft Word, my suggestion would be to change from centimeters to inches, because the margins are 1-inch margins all the way around, 1 inch, and a 1/2 inch indentation. It's 0.5 of an inch. Why do I say change from centimeters to inches? Because you have to get a 1/2 inch. Okay, 1 inch is like 2.54 centimeters. So it would be like 1.76. I mean, it's like hard to get the exact 1/2 inch. If you change your Microsoft Word document from centimeters to inches, you just put 0.5. You can slide the slider over, bless you, and you're good to go. Okay, so indentions, 1 inch margin all the way around. That's top, bottom, left, and right. And a 0.5 indention for each paragraph. Each paragraph has an indention, except for the abstract. Except for the abstract. The abstract should be 150 to 200 words. I know I'm going really fast, but this is being recorded. And I have the web page that I gave you earlier on my website that you can go in. There's a lot of details with the APA. That's what makes it difficult. It's not really difficult in doing it, but you need to find all the details for each section. Okay. So the abstract is not indented. It's left justified. All of your text is left justified. Most of the documents here in Mexico, we like to justify it and bring it out so that the right-hand side is all lined up, but not in APA. Okay, it's all left justified. All the text, all left justified. So that means left. So that means this side, it's not even. It's all like this. But it makes it easier to read. That's the rationale. Because you don't have, you know how sometimes when you divide up the words and it's all lined up on the right-hand side, some of the words have a lot of space, right? So the idea here is to bring everything to the left so it's easier to read. And trust me, it's easier to read, especially when you're reading a long document. What else? Quickly. Left justified. Left. Spacing. One last thing. Spacing. What I mean by spacing is the spacing between the lines. Spacing. Everything should be double spaced. Okay, that means double space between the lines of a paragraph. That means double space between the headings and the paragraph. You don't want to create more space between the headings in the paragraph than the lines of the paragraph. Equal spacing, but all double spaced. Okay, so all double spaced, equal spacing throughout. The only exception would be in the references. The references are single spaced for each reference, but double spaced between each reference. That means sometimes we have references that are more than one line, right? So if this reference were 2 lines, then it would be single spaced, right? But then after this first reference, I would double space to the next reference. That's what I mean. So it would be single spaced within each reference, double spaced between each reference. Okay? All right. A lot of information. Feel free to check this video out. Feel free to go to benjaminstewart.co, go down to the bottom, and you can access APA Survival Kit, where I have a 26-minute video going in and showing you examples, just like we've done here, but with more detail. I recommend checking that out, going through and looking at that. If you're not sure, ask somebody. Ask me, check online. But find an example and print that out and have it with you, and that's your best bet for making sure that you don't make any obvious mistakes with APA. Okay. Any questions? I know a lot of information. It's not hard, but there are just a lot of details. Right? And be careful with the spacing and the punctuations, especially in the references. Okay?
Thank you.
That's it.